Te Whaariki was revolutionary, and it was the inspiration of some really passionate educators who believed in children, not only children but how they learned, and more importantly which learning matters.
It was our first curriculum, it was the first to integrate education and care, and it was the first to have elevated the status of infants as learners and toddlers and young children.
Te Whaariki, the New Zealand Aotearoa early childhood curriculum, is 20 years old and remains a hugely popular, world-leading document still. Yet it's easy to forget that the origins of the curriculum were inauspicious. In the early 1990s, the very idea of one curriculum for the 0 to 5 sector was anathema, and when the proposition was presented to a gathering of the sector, there was widespread disapproval.
The outrage was so extreme that the ministry was asked to leave the room, apparently, while these organisations debated, because we don't need a curriculum. Play Centre knew what they were doing, kindergarten knew what they were doing, people working with infants and toddlers had their own approaches, but the notion of a combined curriculum, even using the word curriculum, was an anathema. Kohanga Reo were there and were deeply concerned, because what would it mean for Kohanga Reo if there is a national curriculum?
However, knowing that the ministry was determined to proceed, leading figures within early childhood joined to create a single bid to design the curriculum. This resulted in a final document that the minister was obliged to accept because it had been widely consulted over, trialled and supported across the sector.
The consultation was pretty amazing. All up and down the country, small groups from Play Centre, from Steiner, from Montessori, from childcare and kindergarten and so on. They all met together, then they talked about what we should do. So that was really, really important. In the very old days, a ministry would sit down and write a curriculum, and it'd be a small group of people, might be 1 or 2 people. But we did it, in a sense, the Aotearoa New Zealand way of collaboration.
That was the beginning of Te Whaariki, very political, very sensitive, and it's one of the unusual stories in early childhood policy history is that in this era of extreme right-wing thinking about education, there were cuts going on, the mother of all budgets, there was bulk funding debates, the teachers were on the streets, yet we were able in some way, partly because we all stuck together, to go under the radar in a way and create what became Te Whaariki.
Absolutely critical to the making of Te Whaariki had been a partnership with the Kohanga Reo National Trust, who loaned Tamati and Tiliridi to the writing team. The result was a uniquely New Zealand curriculum.
It's both bilingual and bicultural, so it responds to the Treaty of Waitangi. And I want to read something that Tilly said at an OECD meeting in 2014. After 200 years of educational history, Māori was, for the first time, being given the opportunity to influence a new curriculum that would touch the minds of future New Zealanders.
One critical effect of a genuinely bicultural curriculum was the placing of child agency at its centre. On just the second day of the original working group's deliberations, this was established.
The Māori working group came back first and almost in a sense said, we've designed the curriculum, put it on the table, and it is around the notion of mana and empowerment. And they listed the 5 mana that are Te Whaariki today.
Mana or empowerment encourages the centrality of family, whānau and culture.
Yeah, it's a document that's holistic and it looked at the whole child, not just as themselves, but in the context of their family and their community, the world as they saw it.
Te Whaariki sees the child as coming in already competent and with their own understandings of the world and how it works. And so teaching and learning becomes a thing of co-construction, so we're teaching and learning together. We don't have all the knowledge and all the power. We share that with the children and we learn and work together.
Think B. B. B.
It's not been a transmission model where we have had to be didactic and say do this, that and the other thing, but we've actually worked together, and that idea of the reciprocal and responsive relationships, that has been an incredible catalyst, I think, for teachers. It has meant that there's been these ideas, this respect for children's rights.
It is what matters to the child, and we've been on such diverse tracks as looking at dog kennels or what you can make with a cardboard box. The beauty of it as a teacher is we never know what's going to arise tomorrow, but we do know that it's going to be exciting, but it's going to also be what matters for that child.
What matters most is that children develop dispositions that will prepare them for later life, as articulated in this quote from Te
They
Whaariki.
say, and I still love this quote, early childhood is a period of momentous significance for all people growing up in our culture. By the time this period is over, children will have formed conceptions of themselves as social beings, as thinkers and as language users, and they will have reached certain important decisions about their own abilities and their own worth.
In Te Whaariki, we're thinking about dispositions to learn. It could be things like playfulness, things like curiosity, persevering, being able to work alongside and with others, dispositions to learn.
I think when we look at the Dunedin studies, that actually is reinforced that we're doing the right thing with our curriculum, that we should be looking at how children learn and why they're learning. Those that are resilient and strong and have good self-image are the ones who are going to do best in society.
Te Whaariki doesn't only recognise the agency of preschoolers, it acknowledges babies, infants and toddlers as active learners.
Was very radical, and I think it still is very radical to see infants and toddlers as confident and capable in being able to take control of their well-being in the exploration, the communication, learning their social skills, how to be, how to interact with people, how to negotiate, learning how to move their bodies. So it provides the core and the base for all their future development.
Te Whaariki does not tell teachers what to do. There were people who wanted a curriculum that told you what to do. And one large chain operator advised Margaret and I, just make it easy for my gals so they'll know what to do on Monday. However, we, from the start, had this vision of a fully qualified early childhood teaching workforce. Now, we couldn't put that into Whaariki, but we did pitch it at a level which assumed teachers would have the theoretical knowledge, the cultural knowledge, the professional judgment to weave their curriculum with their children, with their whānau, with their colleagues.
It lifted the profession out of childcare and talked about early childhood education, not preschool. And so that shift in discourse has been very significant.
Every centre should have early childhood education qualified teachers. Of course, we always want more teachers in a centre and the ratios to be better.
An extraordinary achievement of Te Whaariki has been its inclusiveness, the way it makes a place for all children, their families and their communities.
Te Whaariki is a metaphor really for us to be able to weave whatever we want in our curriculum for our children. We can consider things like going on noho marae, like taking the whole centre and the families to a marae that's got some significance to the families. This curriculum does leave it open for us to be able to follow all the spiritual ceremonies, to use the karakia that we want to use waiata and any other significant Māori spiritual ceremonies.
This document has led us to the forefront of international education. We become the focus of interest where we are doing something revolutionary, and a number of countries have certainly picked up from that document and led their countries in similar directions.
It's interesting now to look at other national curricula who have also, other countries which have also developed this notion of an aspirational view of the child, and then saw some goals or principles and a framework with which to work. It's not the activities. It's about the child and the child's learning and the cultural context in which that occurs.